Welcome to the Gaelan Trombley Show. You can find me on Facebook at Gaelan Trombley, on Instagram at Gaelan Trombley, and on YouTube at Gaelan Trombley. Spelling Gaelan Trombley. Enjoy the show. On episode 45 of the Gaelan Trombley Show, I have Dave Brown. Dave is a financial advisor at SeaComm. We talk very briefly about that, but we go a lot into his background of music. We talk NFL draft, which he's way better at that stuff and more knowledgeable than I am. And we also talk at the very end about his love of craft beers from his time in Vermont, and then my lack of knowledge in craft beers, but my enjoyment of drinking them with lack of knowledge. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Dave's a great guy. We had a blast on it. So this is episode 45 of the Gaelan Trombley Show with Dave Brown. Welcome to the Gaelan Trombley Show. Welcome to episode 45 of the Gaelan Trombley Show. Today I have my friend Dave Brown in studio. Dave is the financial advisor at SeaComm, and they are a local credit union in our area, and Dave is on the financial advisor kind of wing of that branch. And so, Dave, welcome to your first ever podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I've been wanting to get Dave in, so we got him in today, which is actually kind of a perfect day for it. It's miserable outside, but it's all right. We're having a good time inside, so it all worked out. So, Dave, I always do this before everybody or for every podcast. Just kind of give people a background on you so they know who the heck you are, and then we'll just get into all the fun stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in this area, graduated from Beacontown Central, went to Clinton Community a few years after that, and then Plattsburgh State after that. Got my degree in finance, my bachelor's rather. My associate's was in business administration. Kind of got into the market during the '08 recession. Jim Cramer really kind of piqued my interest, just the energy.
Is that the crazy money guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mad Money?
Mad Money.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's not to say I refer to him as like an important source of information, but for some reason he just kind of turned me on to the industry, and it was an interesting time. But that's kind of my history getting into the line of work I'm in. Always been around this area, so.
And did you ever move away?
I didn't, no. Most of last year I was working in Vermont, but that's probably the most I've been away from Plattsburgh. And in fact, while I was working for Ameritrade over in Burlington, Vermont, I had actually traveled for work, and it was actually the furthest I've ever traveled, and that was to Fort Worth, Texas, which is right next to Dallas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
So in the financial planning, you saw the Mad Money guy, and I mean, that obviously did enough to get you into it. I'm sure that you kind of dove in a little bit into the financing world. So
yeah.
Kind of give us like your 2 cents on, I guess, why you like financing, what's your favorite part about the financial industry. And obviously I know that there's, it's tough to say like, hey, these are guidelines. I've read enough financial books that, a lot of the stuff, some of the stuff it's ever changing kind of thing. So you can never take someone's word as like, here's what it's going to be down the road. Cause a lot of it's like your guesswork really. I mean, you're kind of looking at trends, but you never know. Cause
absolutely.
I mean, something could happen all of a sudden and the markets go down. So kind of what's your 2 cents in the whole industry? Like what's your favorite part? Why are you in it? What do you like most about it?
Well, why I'm in it, I think, just like everything else, there's a lot of, just growing into the environment that I did. I was kind of unsure of where I wanted to go straight out of high school. I started off in very basic retail sales. I mean, I was selling clothes and credit cards at a local Gap outlet, and for the time being, it was just a source of a little bit of money, for whatever. And after, a few months of doing that, I kind of, figured out that I kind of like just simply selling to people, and interacting with people in that way. I've always been kind of a competitive, nerdy type, I guess. So, in combination with the sales mentality, it just kind of formulated the perfect combination of, well, I want to, of course, go further in sales. I just don't want to be, selling clothes or credit cards and what have you. So when I had stumbled upon, it sounds relatively basic, but just CNBC, basic financial news, including Mad Money, I started watching on a regular basis to, pick up on a lot of the terminology and the industry, et cetera. I'm like, this kind of, for some reason, it just sounded right for me. And in addition to that, it was exciting. I'm the type, I get bored easily. I mean, that hasn't changed throughout my lifetime, for good or for bad. So that excitement with the stock market, and it seemed to be always evolving. So that there's always something new to learn. So it's hard to get bored in the industry. So, to touch on my background a little more with sales, when I eventually went into college, because I actually didn't start going to college for almost 5 years after high school. And once I got in, I went for the 2+2 with Clinton Community College and then Plattsburgh State. I did my business administration stuff at Clinton, and then I went on to Plattsburgh State. During that time, I was working at Best Buy, selling cell phones primarily. And I sold all over the sales floor and did a slew of other things. But the importance of cell phones, and I actually started selling cell phones when smartphones started becoming a common item for people. Because, at the time, I had this little NV3 phone that had like the flip keyboard. And, smartphones, the only real smartphone was the BlackBerry at the time.
Was this like 07, 8, 9?
Yeah. It was around 09.
Yeah.
So I think like the iPhone 3G had come out, but, it was maybe only every like 1 out of 10 people had it, if that. Of course, there were like iPod touches at the time. But right when I started, like the iPhone 4 and the 4S was like getting launched shortly after. So, the iPhone 4 was the real big one, in addition to like a handful of Android phones. And just doing that through the years, cell phones is a very personal subject for a lot of people. And if you don't, sell them the right product, the right services, et cetera, it can be a really like damaging situation for folks. They take it personally. So having that personal interaction with something as simple as cell phone and the service turned me even more on to sales and kind of lit that competitive side of me, in addition to just being able to interact with people and different types.
Are you iPhone, Samsung, Google? What's the other one? Like, what are the phones right now?
Oh, geez.
Because I'm not a very tech guy.
I've really, I don't want to say I've separated myself, but just, being like selling tech for so long, I just kind of, I don't want to say I grew sick of it, but I just don't gravitate towards it as much these days. But it's definitely still Galaxy, Samsung Galaxy, and Apple are definitely
So like Google's like definitely third.
I would say that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Of course they have the software. So
I had my first phone was like this little flip phone in high school. And then I remember I ended up getting a phone. I think I had a phone. I had one phone that you couldn't really do anything on. I think I could play the snake game on it, kind of deal. And that's pretty much all I did. I don't think I could text on it. I think it was calling and that. And it was like, there was nothing else on that thing. Bought the second one. Had the ability to take a photo. Now the photo was about as clear as you'd see a thumbnail on. Like,
yep.
It was very tiny. The pixels weren't great. I remember getting it for Christmas, and I think I had it in the box until March. Never used it. I only used it because I think it was a girl back in high school that wanted to, I think, text me at the time.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, that's for a young male at the age of 16, 17. That was enough to get me to activate my damn phone. So, but I ended up using it, and then all of a sudden I went into like the BlackBerry, and I remember getting the BlackBerry, and I think my dad had one, and I had a couple of people that I knew had one, and this was probably probably right when I got into real estate. I think I had another little phone right before that with like the mirror on the outside. It was kind of a stupid concept now. I looking at it back then, it was like the thing, they got like a mirror on this, they can pop it up, and I don't know why I needed a mirror on the phone. But then, so I went to the BlackBerry. BlackBerry I liked for a little bit, and then I finally got an iPhone probably in 2012-ish.
Okay.
Probably 12. And I've been iPhone now for 7-8 years.
Yeah.
I like the simplicity of it. But like you said, like when I go, I hate going to get cell phones. Like there's a few things in my life that I hate to go buy.
Yeah.
And cell phones are one of them.
It can be
cars
painful.
are one of them.
Yep.
I wish I could just get into a car and never have to buy a car ever again, and that it would just run fine, and I wouldn't have to run with like leases. I never bought a car yet. I want to at some point, but I've never really found a car that I really want to buy. But cell phones, the problem is I'm the one that'll go in, I'll get the most memory on my phone. I get like the best phone you can get. For me, it's like it's a huge investment because I'm on my phone 18 hours a day. I'm probably on my phone. Like literally the first thing I do in the morning is check it. Last thing I do before I go to bed is turn it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm wired in all day long, but part of it is that's my lifeline for work.
Yeah.
And so when I go in and I go get a phone, so you go in and whatever, like I'll give a shout out to Majo at AT&T. She's my girl there that helps me. But I'll go in and like I had to back up my phone last time I went and got the phone. It was just like 12 hours worth of backing up or doing whatever. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to screw it up. You do it here at the store. Yeah. I'm going to go home. It's like 6 o'clock at night. I will come pick it up at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. I do not need a phone for the next 12 to 15 hours. And let me tell you what, like when I know I don't have my phone, I feel so good. And I've been trying to work on this I'll get to the next thing. So meaning like I get why people freak out doing the phone thing.
Yeah.
Because when I go in, like there's certain things I need. I also need to make sure the camera's good. I do a lot of video. I need to know the memory's good. I need to know all the stuff now obviously I'm pretty much like loyal at this point to Apple, but it's, there's always different tweaks. Do I need the 8? Do I need the 10? Do I need this or that? And I usually kind of splurge for the bigger one, or also pay the extra $400 or $500 because I'm on it all day long. Like
Sure.
To me, it's totally worth any investment I put in. I've been trying to get better at it. I haven't fully. I can't say it's in my mind as something that I want to do. Is like unplugging situations.
Yeah.
It's tough in my line of work because you're obviously client dependent and people have needs all day long. And literally morning to night, I get texts at 6 a.m. I get texts at 11 p.m. And it's just people are either and a lot of those obviously those are extreme where I won't respond to them right then and there. But it's the idea like that 12 or 15 hours was amazing. I had no phone that night. I was great. I think I went home and read. It was amazing. Next morning, got up, didn't have to worry about checking anything crazy. And I just knew like, whatever, I was out of a phone. And it's like, to me, that recharge is so, it's just like, it's needed. It's therapeutic.
Sure.
Where I want to get to the point where maybe once or twice a month for a day I have no phone. Like take a Sunday and just no phone, or Saturday just probably a Saturday no phone. Like you can't reach me, nothing. It's off.
Yeah, there's definitely a strange addiction that we have with technology, and it kind of goes back to television, and then to maybe gaming system for some of us old school nerds, and then PCs, and then cell phones, and and just those basic cell phones, and then smartphones that have changed our culture entirely. And it's funny to see how it's evolved. I was born in '86, so I remember when cell phones weren't a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just simply within the past decade, I mean, the culture has changed entirely. Well,
I think our generation's going to be, we're basically the last generation. Like my kids now, they're going to be full on technology.
Yeah.
Like I mean, they know. I mean, my kid's a little younger, but by the time they're 2, 3, they can turn on everything and use it.
Yeah.
And I do remember the time of, the dial-up internet. I do remember the time of like you have a couple TV stations. I do remember the time of there's a lot of different things that you didn't have all these bells and whistles, like having to watch a TV show when it was on at 8 o'clock at night because that's the only time you're going to see it. Like you couldn't DVR it. It wasn't on Netflix. There's no streaming service. You had Blockbuster. You would go. I remember going and rent video games. Like you would go and rent video games at. I think they're still open somehow. The under one roof.
Yeah.
They're still open. I think they have a sign that says the last video store on earth.
Yeah.
But no, I think we're such. It's so cool because we have been able to grow up, but we've totally lived through the boom of the internet, the boom of technology. Obviously, it's going to go crazy, but we're like our lifetime is going to see a huge. We're going to see like the industrial revolution and all those kind of revolutions. This is like the technology revolution.
Sure.
We're living 100% first person point of view. Now you mentioned, are you a gamer?
Oh yeah.
Play video. Is that a gamer means you play? I do not know this at all. It means you play video games, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's probably socially acceptable, maybe more so these days than it was when I was like a young teenager or whatever. And it's not maybe just the fact that people play games, but I think it's also kind of like a clothing style, per se. In addition to like the personalities that maybe come along with it. But yeah, I've of course it's diminished as I've gotten older and replaced my spare time with other hobbies and whatnot. But I've been a nerd, if you want to put it that way, for since I can remember, basically.
So have you played like the new video games? Because this is my video game. Mine was my big one I first got into was the N64. Like I played the old Nintendo and I played like the Sega and I played those, but I never owned one. The first thing I owned was an N64. I got it in like 98 maybe.
Okay.
And then I ended up going to the Xbox probably 2005, 6, 7, right in that range. And that's what I played. And then anything after the Xbox, I was out. Like, I don't know what system they have right now. I haven't played video games consistently in 10 years.
Yeah, the people still played a lot of the consoles, like the PS4 or the Xbox One. And I still have a PS4 that sits around and is essentially just like for Netflix and Hulu. Mm-hmm. But I don't play games on that anymore. It's strictly PC at this point.
So that's the big thing now, is PC.
I think it's become
that
more common.
Is that where you play, like, is it Fortnite? That's where you play on PC?
Yeah, I don't personally play Fortnite, but you can, Fortnite's cross-platform compatible, so, you have people playing it on console and PC, and they all play together, I believe. I could be mistaken. But
because I go into a lot of homes, and, like, they have setups. They have dual monitors. They have all these PC memory drive. I don't know what they call it, like console. What the heart? The thing on a computer.
RAM?
It might be. I don't know. I'm very dumb when it comes to this. But like, they have all this stuff. I'm guessing for processing speed.
Yeah.
But some people are like, oh my god, that one's a good. And I'm like, and there's people that right now that go and look at homes, and where you would have had people have been like, I need a home office or whatever. Now I've seen a lot of guys be like, well, I need a place to play my gaming or is it Twitch?
Yeah.
Like I need and I've known there's a couple people that like they monetize it. They've made money on it.
Oh sure, yeah.
I mean, even locally, and they're like, yeah, you pay through this way. And they're trying to explain it to me. And again, I'm very much like, give me straight up N64 Mario Kart. I'm good.
Oh yeah.
All these things now that it's so beyond because I'm just completely out of it. I don't know what the systems are. Tiger Woods golf.
Oh yeah, Tiger Woods.
I can still do decent. But I would get run over by you. Like muscle memory comes back. Like you give me a Mario Kart, I'm probably winning. Those other ones, no.
Yeah,
close.
I can definitely speak to going from like the old school consoles to PC. In regards to it being more prevalent, I think that goes hand in hand with the streaming community and how that's really launched, as well as the esports community has grown. And I don't want to refer to like different forecasts, but there's a lot of sources stating that esports is going to be bigger than most professional sports.
It's big right now
within the next decade, if not sooner, with the exception of maybe like professional football, because that's always going to be big. Mm-hmm. But it just, number one, it's more immersive, I guess you can say, from the PC perspective, as opposed to just like sitting on a couch and literally just playing with your thumbs. With a lot of your old school consoles, but the games these days, I think, really suit this new generation of I don't want to say a shortened attention span because that sounds, kind of disrespectful, but it just provides you a lot more stuff to think about, whether it's mechanically or objectively. And for me, it's, I've always been competitive just in every angle of life. So I like to play more of like the multiplayer stuff, as well as like stuff that requires team co-op kind of stuff. So I like to communicate. I like to be active. But I usually set aside like maybe a little bit of time on like the weekend to do that when I can.
Well, you got to think about, I think you mentioned a good thing, is that when you, for some reason, there's a couple sports, and I'm going to use, I play a lot of golf. I've been to golf tournaments, like professional golf tournaments, like seen all the top players play. When you watch those guys play, you can really appreciate how good they are, because you can be at the course, you can see their tee shot, where they're hitting, you can see how narrow the fairway is, you can see how tight the tree line is, you can see how fast the greens are, how much slope are on the greens.
Yeah.
Then you realize that they're playing with the same kind of golf ball I would play. They're playing with the same club. They're all this stuff, but you can see how good they are, because I can compare that. If I go out, I'm going to be all over the place, where these guys are so good. I can't get the same level of, I can't get that same experience from professional football. Yeah. No matter what, I know that Tom Brady can throw the football farther than I can, but at the end of the day, he might make some good passes here and there, but I can throw a football.
Yeah.
He can throw a football. Yes, he can throw a little bit better, faster, but then you realize, okay, now he's doing it. If you're on the field with 300-pound linemen running at you, I cannot replicate that anywhere. I can go out and play, if I want to spend the money, I can go play, quality courses at PGA level, but I can go right around here and play courses from the very back tips and struggle like crazy and watch that those tee boxes are much closer than what the other guys are playing.
Yeah.
And then, so the video game aspect is, if you're playing a video game, you can feel exactly, like you can appreciate the level that the guys that are winning the world championships of Fortnite, because I've seen those pop up on Instagram and stuff, like you see them win it, but you have an appreciation because you're like, wow, I've seen that guy play. And like I always see these, like Ninja. I know I've heard of Ninja.
Yeah, like he's like a millionaire. He just streams video games.
Yeah, and like you look on, I looked on his Instagram account, and it's just a bunch of clips of like him playing, like clips of his screen of him running around. Like it means nothing to me. It looks stupid. But somebody that's into that can appreciate, like, oh my God, I can't believe he did this, this, and this. But because you can actually go play the levels or go play the worlds or whatever they're playing in, you have the first person appreciation because you're seeing it. Like me with golf, if I see Tiger Woods hit a golf ball, I can appreciate how hard the course is and how good he is because of what he's able to do, where I know I would shoot double the score.
Yeah. I think that brings up a couple really interesting points, like with how you can relate to the athletes or, the gamers in this scenario. And I think it speaks to, this upcoming generation, hopefully not for the worse, but, perhaps a lot of these younger boys and girls can relate to these streamers because, they themselves are maybe gamers and aren't as interested in, old-fashioned sports. I don't know. I guess that's more of like a philosophical thing. I mean, hopefully physical sports will always be a common thing in our society. But I know with the trends and whatnot and with streaming. In addition to that, to kind of take it even further, for the guys and girls that, like to game, but don't necessarily, want to go through the process of having to do it. Like they can just watch someone else game. Like it's entertainment. And it kind of scratches that itch of, I kind of want a game, but not really. I can just watch someone else do it. And they get to interact with other people that are watching too. So there's a social aspect to it.
What do you consume? Like if you were to sit down, watch, are you a movie guy, TV show guy? Like what do you watch typically? Like,
oh man.
Like I said, do you watch, like, would you watch something like that? Like people play video games.
Personally, I wouldn't do it. Unless, I was just trying to kill maybe 10, 15 minutes. I'll watch like a YouTube video occasionally. But I wouldn't like just sit down and watch a streamer, play a game live. I mean, I can't say that I haven't done it because, I've done it probably a handful of times, but it's not something I would do. I would rather just game myself or do something else that I do, like whatever.
Like I find that, like from a consuming standpoint, I don't watch a lot of movies. I like going to the movies. I don't know the last time I went to the movies, and part of it now is just between work and kids and stuff. It's like I'm very rarely have time. I want to go see. Did you go see the Hollywood movie, Quentin Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No,
I wanted to see it. It came out like 3 weeks ago. I wanted to go see it the first week. Never did. And this is what happened. Eventually, it's going to be out of theaters, and I will probably never see it. Because maybe I'll watch it at home. But if a Quentin Tarantino movie, you've seen his movies?
I've seen a couple of them, yeah. Okay,
we'll talk about that after because I like him. But the idea is that a lot of these like consuming stuff, movies I don't really consume. TV shows, I don't get into new series. I'll watch reruns of The Office, and usually it's background. Like I'll be working on like the couch or something at night, and I'll have it on just because it's mindless for me, and I can just like I don't have to pay attention to it, and I can look up and I can watch another scene, and I can just work for a few minutes. And that part's great. But what I normally do if I like sit down, if I have free time to sit down and actually watch something, 90% of the time watching YouTube. And like I'm a big consumer of YouTube. I'm a big consumer of vlogs. I'm a big consumer of how-to videos. I'm a big consumer of highlight like sports. Like how to do stuff in golf. I follow. I go to a CrossFit gym. We talked about that before, but like I still follow the sport of CrossFit. So I'll watch interviews, or I'll watch highlights, or I'll watch like even someone. I know it sounds dumb, but like working out for whatever reason, I have an appreciation because I look at it more as like the skill level of an athlete from a sporting perspective versus watching the guy like sit there squat. But it's like you can have. For me, it's kind of like someone watching video games. Is you can pick up little things. You can pick up watching golfers play. You can pick up on things because I want to try to get better at that. It's kind of the same. Like I'm trying to get in a little bit of woodworking right now. I've been watching some woodworking stuff because I've talked about what me and Ryan working on. So it's like, are you a consumer of YouTube in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched like a handful of things on YouTube. Nothing in particular. I like to try and stay up to date on, different like political and cultural changes in our, not only in our country, but just globally. And I don't want to say it's difficult, but you try to remain as objective as possible with different sources. So I try to stay up to date on that kind of stuff. But as far as entertainment goes, I mean, I've always been big into music. I do like podcasts as well. So a lot of the time, if I have some free time on the weekend and I need to take care of some whatever kind of chores, I usually have headphones in or like a Bluetooth speaker going with music or a podcast. But yeah, I've found, I mean, going back to movies and TV or, streaming, if you want to call it that these days, it's hard to find something these days. I'll still watch like some live sports. Like I like watching basketball. I really am a glutton for punishment. I'm a Knicks and Raiders fan, so usually I'm not watching
Raiders.
Yeah. My dad has always been a Cowboys fan, so I kind of just went with the Raiders when I was young, and I don't like to switch teams. Like I'm not going to switch teams. So
I'm the same.
So I stuck with them. Hopefully this season will be a little better for them. But yeah, the TV and I'll watch it occasionally. Like if I'm at my parents', they like to watch stuff at night. Or if I'm with friends, whatever. But yeah, I kind of, what you said, refer to reruns of stuff like The Office. I love The Office. Family Guy, it used to be good. It's kind of lost its touch. There are a couple others out there that I've kind of delved into, but nothing significant.
Yeah, I used to watch Family Guy a lot, but then I haven't watched Family Guy since high school, and part of it is it's kind of like the same kind of style of jokes over and over again because they're still making it. It'd be like The Office making season all right, they're making season 15 now, and it's like, okay, well, great. I mean, I'm probably still going to watch it as a lifelong, but I mean, at a certain point, you're like, okay, they made 9 seasons of it. That was good. I mean, I'm sure they could have done another 5, 6, 7 seasons of dumb stuff, but so you said NFL. So last night, me and some buddies, it was great. I ended up. One of my buddies reached out, said, "Do you want to get in the fantasy football league?" So I said, "I Again, I don't really pay attention to it much, but on weekends I try to watch football. So like I like the Giants, so I try to watch the Giants games. That's probably the only one I'll actually watch. We'll have the TV on as like background, but I'm usually like I'm doing stuff. So like I'm not gonna sit down and like watch football all day long. Even the Giants, I love them, but there's times where, I'm gonna be sitting there especially the first half. I'll be doing like odds and end chores, and the game will be on. I'll walk in, catch a play or two, and then I'm out doing something else. And it's tough for me to spend 3 hours watching TV in a row for a football game.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So to me, it's a commitment to watch a full game, even though I love the Giants and I try to follow them. But so we go in. He's like, "You want to do fantasy football?" I said, "Sure," because I kind of like it. Gives me something to root for when I'm actually, am watching it. And so we go and we show up, and he goes, "We're doing the draft, 7:00, Buffalo Wild Wings." I'm like, okay, well, so I cleared my schedule, put on my schedule or calendar. Show up. I didn't realize a couple of my high school buddies were there. This was last night.
Oh, nice.
So we had a blast. So we sat down, had a couple drinks, did our teams, and basically just shot the shit for a few hours. And the NFL draft, I have Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Well, this is the problem. So the NFL draft, we get going, and it's a live draft. So there's like 8 of us in the league, I think. So it's like you can see it go. We have 5 of the 8 guys that are there. The other 3 guys are doing the draft. They're just doing it, from a distance. And the first pick goes up. I have like the 5th pick in the draft. Well, the best option when I come up as pick number 1 is Ezekiel Elliott from the Cowboys.
That's a good one.
And then, one of the guys goes, he's holding out his contract. And I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't know any of this. I don't know any of this stuff. So then the next one is another running back doing the same thing. So I'm like, what the hell?
That's probably, what's Texas name from the Chargers?
Yes, it was the Charger guy.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. So it literally is those 2 guys. I'm like, well, I might as well grab these 2. And like, well, these are the thing. And I didn't know that. Had I known, I would have probably grabbed the Chargers. I try to avoid grabbing anybody in the NFL East because I'll root against them. Yeah. Because I don't care. Like, I'll get the running back. I'll get Ezekiel Elliott, and I hope he gets negative 100 yards. Because if that means that the Giants win, they lose and Giants can win. But so we end up doing this whole draft, and I'm picking. But like, I had the hardest time going through the guys, and my team is like halfway decent, but I would have been lost because I don't follow football. A couple of them had like books out or a computer out. I'm like, dude, you guys are nerds, man. I'm like going down 90 seconds. Like, it went pretty fast. Like most of them, because a lot of them obviously like they have a lot of rankings. And they say draft this guy next.
Oh yeah.
So then, I mean, you can pick and choose a little bit. Sometimes I went off script, but a lot of times it was just like get the top guy.
Yeah.
But I have Antonio Brown, who they said he's complaining about a helmet or.
Yeah. So he's.
Is this his first year there?
It is, yeah. I mean, he hasn't even played a game with them yet. He was traded to the Raiders from the Steelers, I think, for like a 2nd and 4th round pick, which, I mean, based on his value, is probably a very good trade for the Raiders. But he started causing unnecessary drama with the Steelers in the last year with them. But he's a hell of a player. But he is getting up there in age for the football world. I think he's like 32 now. But he hasn't really had any significant health concerns. But I guess the whole issue with the helmet is the old model that isn't approved by like the new standards now because they've supposedly come a far way with
concussions.
Yeah. So. He preferred the old model because it was more comfortable, and he basically threatened to retire / hold it against the NFL. There's continuing litigation, whatever, etc. But the Raiders general manager, actually, I think it was yesterday or the day before, basically put his foot down and said either you're all in or you're gone, and he's all in now. So.
Called his bluff.
Yeah. Because I mean, this guy has turned into a straight diva. It's unfortunate, and when you're getting that kind of money, I think a lot of people would probably fall into that kind of hypnosis, for a lack of a better word. But going back to the fantasy thing, I've been doing 2 fantasy leagues with a bunch of old high school friends for like over a decade now.
Oh wow!
And
like money, do you guys put money in?
Yeah,
it's a big deal.
Yep, yeah. It's something. It's not like a whole lot, like maybe like $50 or $100 or something. But I mean, you get 12 guys, and there's a fair amount of competition.
It's fun. It's more like the trash talk, and like if you get guys that are in the league, and you can kind of
Yeah.
A lot of it to me is just like it gives you a little bit of entertainment value for 4 months when you're playing. It's fun.
It's a genius concept. I mean, and they have, of course, fantasy sports for everything these days. Baseball, basketball, so on and so on. But for football, I think it's just more fitting because of the pace of the game, and because, of course, it's just a fun game to watch generally.
And it's one game. It's like a couple days a week.
Yeah.
Your players play one game a week, so you get to see. It's easier to follow in my eyes.
Yeah.
Like baseball would be that seems like it'd be tough.
Yeah, I did a baseball league with some old coworkers for I think 3 years in a row, and I thought it was fun, but you do have to stay up to date with it literally on a daily basis. And then like the pitching aspect of it, you kind of have to be preemptive with like injuries, and it's interesting. But with football, it's just a perfect equation of excitement, possibly alcohol, testosterone, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna try to. I don't know if we get guys together like to actually watch it. It's kind of tough. Like I didn't think all the guys were like one guy drove up from basically Glens Falls for the night to do the draft to drive home this morning. Like he's like I gotta be back. He coaches football downstate, so we were actually gonna have an impromptu. Like we got done. The draft went fairly quick. We were pretty much done by like 8:30. Or 8:30, and we're gonna come back here and actually do a podcast with like 3 of my high school buddies, which would have been a blast. Like little beer, we had a good time. But the problem was we just ended up talking too long, and it was like 9:30. I'm like, you know what, we're not gonna start at 9:30 at night, and we had to go home and go to bed. But it was we ended up going, I think, Ridley's till about 10:30. So we drove back downtown. Just literally, last night was absolutely beautiful. We just sat outside, each had a drink.
Yeah.
Like I said, shot the shit for probably another hour and headed home after. It was a blast. Like, it was good. Just, you don't, like, as you get older, you don't get to see your your high school buddies anymore.
Yeah.
Or college or whatever. Like your friends, from a kind of like a previous life almost. Because, we're all in different things nowadays. And like a lot of us just catch up and reminisce and make fun of the same people over and over again. And we just have a blast doing that. Like, it doesn't. Like a lot of I see people way more than I see those guys, but still those are like the crew that you want to go back to and just like hang out, and it's just kind of more laid back, and it still feels like you're a kid again. Which
oh yeah, I mean they're kind of like more or less like a benchmark.
Yeah.
And it's just those conversations with old friends are they're always the best. Like it's you always have something to relate to. But yeah, as you get older, I mean of course, you're more accustomed to developing new friendships and being able to develop relationships on a more short-term basis. But I've been fortunate in that regard because I still have one of my longtime best friends who lives here in Plattsburgh. But the bulk of them, one's in Maine, one's in Virginia, another one's in South Carolina. We still stay in touch, but I mean, it's it stinks.
It gets tough, yeah. But I find like as I've gotten older too, like things have. I had a very weird. Like if I had to describe my life, like my memory up until probably 18 is very good.
Yeah.
Then my memory from like college up until probably 2000. God, I would say for like 2009 to probably 2013. Like I remember doing stuff, but if you had to tell me the year I did something or what I did, I would kind of draw a blank, and It's weird because I just think I was in a time in life where I was kind of in between things and I didn't have stuff figured out. And I see a lot of kids at that point in time now, and I kind of, sympathize, with them in that if, you're between kind of that mid-college to early adulthood where you don't know what you want to do and things, and, you don't know where you want to work or where you want to live or, who you want to date or all this kind of stuff. And that was like a time period where it was just like a blur for me, where it just seems like I got like on turbo, or like basically like I hit a speed boost or something, and I went like 5 years down the road because for some reason it's like the oddest time where I don't know, and it wasn't bad, like it wasn't any like really thing negative that happened. It was just a time period that I don't have a lot of really good memories, and I'm sure I did a lot in that time, but I now from about 2013-14 on, I've made a lot of like really good friends that I still am in touch with now that have like become my adult friends that I'll probably be with for a long time, because you had like my high school buddies. I didn't meet anybody in college. I was probably the biggest hermit in college. I'd go to I commuted to Plattsburgh, took my classes, left. I was coaching sports. I was working. I just wasn't in the mode of going and meeting people in college.
Yeah.
So that's probably part of it because I don't have experiences with a lot of friends that way. But it was like your high school buddies, and then it's all your buddies that I've met in the last probably 6 or 7 years. And it's like my two worlds of friends, even though obviously those guys are still involved in it. But you don't see them as much. But when you see them, though, it kind of like brings you back to when you were like basically a kid or high school because you have all these like really fresh memories, but it allows you to almost think totally different than you do now because like, holy crap, like these guys, we did all this stuff together and now we're in this position, but at the end of the day, it's so fun where you can come back and basically hit the reset button.
Yeah.
And it just feels like it's way more laid back. You almost come back from a position of just getting started again where like there was no cares in the world and you're just kind of hanging out. And like I said, we would play Mario Kart and have pizza and wings and drink soda and stay up till 3 a.m. and not care because the next day you just could sleep in and do whatever, watch TV the next day. So it's just funny how things have changed now because now different friends we're now a professional setting or we have families or we have way more responsibility than we did 10 years ago, and it's kind of cool to see that. But yeah, it's always fun every time I see those guys. Like when I got married, we played golf right before like the reception that day. And we went out, we had 5 guys playing on the tee, and they're like 5 of my best buddies from high school. And we had an absolute blast. And we played at Harmony. It was like 14 holes. And for about 4 hours, all we did was rag on each other and just we drank beer, played golf, and just made fun of each other for 5 hours. And it was so much fun. Like one of the most fun rounds I've ever played. And I couldn't tell you, and none of us could tell you what we shot. And nobody cared. Yeah. We just had a good time. You'd mess up on a shot, and all of a sudden you were just turning around making fun of the guy about whatever. I don't know, his face, shoes, hat, whatever. But we had a blast doing that. So, that was just my NFL draft buddy story last night. But that would have been a fun podcast. Yeah. I think if you get like a group of guys, like you just put a mic down with like one mic that picks up everything, it's fun. Especially if you're in a group of like high school buddies. Yeah.
So the 2 leagues that I'm in, there's one league that's my really close knit group of friends, and the other one they're not acquaintances, they're definitely friends, but they're people that I kind of lost touch with more or less, other than this fantasy league. So but it's the same dynamic every time during the draft. Like it's still like this kind of like you're egging people on, you're talking some trash.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You're referring to like some past times that some people it's kind of an embarrassment, etc. Yeah, it's it's always fun to think of that.
Have you ever watched The League?
I have not. No, I've been.
You know what it is?
I do. Yeah.
I watched like 1 season, 1.5 seasons, and that show's pretty funny. because it's centered around fantasy football.
Yeah.
But I've just never really got into it to watch all of it. But that was like this kind of goes back to what we talked about before. Like I just can't. I have a hard time finishing out a series. But I've watched The Office 18 times probably, but I just because I just don't want to restart and pay attention to it. So like The League, I never actually got farther than probably a season and a half or 2 seasons in. But that's a funny show.
It's really funny the dramatics that can come from a fantasy league. Like 'cause in the few leagues that I am in, for every trade it needs to be approved by at least half of the league. So like you can't just so you can't just submit a trade and that's it. Like it needs to be approved by at least 50% of the members. So we've had a number of times where people have threatened to like quit midway, and they usually just suck it up and say screw it, whatever. But yeah, there's definitely some man drama involved with NFL fantasy leagues.
That's rough. 50% of people. That's crazy. Is that just to stop people from dumping teams towards the end of the season?
Exactly. Yeah.
If somebody's like out of it, you'd be like, dude, here's all my good running backs. Here's my quarterback. Here's my.
Yep.
If he obviously has some good players, it's almost like you have a super team.
Yeah, and that's exactly why. Because people will, it'll be at like a later point in the season, and they'll just be like, I'm not going to make it to the playoffs. I might as well just help my closest buddy in the league. So they'll make some bogus trade, and it's just a way of kind of stopping that stuff. Yeah.
How many guys in the league?
The 2 leagues I've been doing for quite some time now. I think it's a dozen per league.
That's good. That's a good number.
Yeah. Yeah.
What, you guys played head to head?
Yep. Yep.
Is there another way to play it, or is it always head to head? Because I've only known the head to head version.
Yeah, that's all I've played.
And to me, that's the most fun.
Yeah,
I love that version.
Yeah, I've played through like different websites. Like I've done Yahoo Fantasy, I've done NFL, and I've done ESPN as well. NFL is the most cut and dry.
That's the one we're doing this one on.
Yeah, it's not to say that you can't change that with every website or every platform, rather. But just kind of like in its original mode, the NFL version I think is the easiest to understand.
The only one I've ever done prior, this is my first time doing the NFL one. The only one prior was Yahoo.
Okay.
And I've never done ESPN, which I don't know which one's the best. I'm sure they're all fairly similar. They all have roughly the same points. But like the problem is our Yahoo one, if you had a good quarterback, because we were getting 1 point for every 10 yards thrown.
Okay.
And this one is 1 point for every 25 yards thrown.
Yeah.
So then when I end up, which I think is more common.
It is.
Okay, so we would have a lot of quarterbacks projected. Usually, like a good quarterback was projected probably around 55 points in the league. Now I'm looking at it, my quarterback is like projected around 20, maybe 30, I think is a high, 25, 30, something like that. So then I'm looking at that, and it's incredible because all of a sudden we were going to pick like my last draft on Yahoo is like the first guy you get is a good quarterback. Like without a doubt, like you're going for the Tom Brady, you're going for the Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees. And I played in this one, and all the top ones were quarterbacks or running backs, wide receivers. And I'm like, why should I get a quarterback? Like, no, you should really get these guys. I'm like, really? And like why shouldn't I get like Patrick Mahomes? And they're like, no, like you're better off getting a couple good, which makes sense now looking at the numbers because 2 or 3 good running backs are going to be better because, like, honestly, they're like quarterbacks are like a dime a dozen because they only get so much points.
Yeah.
You're better off getting maybe a quarterback that can scramble a little bit.
Yeah, you get those run yards.
Because I have Cam Newton and Matt Ryan.
Okay.
Which are both in the same league, but I mean, or division.
Yeah, and the quarterback role, with the exception of that first style where, like, they get a point per 10 yards, but the quarterback position is kind of a crapshoot. Even if you get someone that's had a really good history, like someone like Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers, or in this season Patrick Mahomes, where they've had MVP seasons and have maybe put up that 30+ average or whatever just around that. It's so difficult to get. I mean, you can get whoever the heck is starting for the Jags this year. Like I'm not even sure who it is, but you can still have a winning team if you build around the quarterback. The quarterback's not really a necessary position until like maybe, I don't know, maybe like the 6th, 7th, 8th round.
So my first ever year in the fantasy, this is probably like 5 years ago, and I ended up getting Andrew Luck, and this was Andrew Luck of like, again, probably 4 years ago. Well, sure enough, he gets injured, like game or week 3 or 4 in the season, or maybe it was a little farther, week 6 or 7, whatever. He spent a majority of the time off. So I ended up picking up Blake Bortles. Okay, Blake Bortles from the Jags. Now this is when Blake Bortles was on the bench. He was basically a free agent all year long. Nobody wanted him. Yeah. So I'm like, man, he's probably my best option. So I pick him up. I end up winning he ended up like catching like just went on a tear the second half of the season. Yeah. And I ended up winning my fantasy league with him. Like, Jags were terrible. They didn't make the playoffs, didn't do anything. Yeah. But he just had a hell of a last like 8-9 weeks. Like overall, like if you average it out, he was probably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. So that one ended up winning with, and I always just got like with freaking Blake Bortles, where it's going up against all these other quarterbacks. Yeah. Well,
there's definitely a very significant element of luck with fantasy, especially with football, in regards to like injuries, and just like new players that start producing, in week 5 or week 6 that are still on the waiver wire. So if you happen to be in a position where you can either pick up that free agent, or if you have the backup of like, I don't know, like Todd Gurley, like if you have his backup and he ends up putting up huge numbers, there's definitely like a fair amount of luck involved, for the good and bad. Like last year, my team was absolutely stacked, and then I forgot what happened. Oh, Amari Cooper.
I got him this year, yeah.
Yes, so
But he's on Dallas this year, right?
He is.
Which breaks my heart because I hate Dallas.
Yeah. So I had him, being a Raiders fan, and we were doing a dynasty league. So that's a little interesting.
I like that. Now, how many players did you get to keep?
So we're actually in the 4th year of the dynasty. So now we are at the max capacity of keepers, which is 4. So
So every year you get to keep one guy?
So it starts out, the first year of the dynasty you get 1, second year 2, third year 3, fourth year 4, and it caps at 4. You don't have to keep them. So obviously if you don't have any keepers, then you get to draft earlier. But I had Amari Cooper for, I think 3 seasons. And he was good his rookie year, which I drafted him, of course. His second year with the Raiders, he wasn't very good. I'll just put it that way. Then his third year, I think he maybe had like a game or two, which were, respectable. But then he got traded to Dallas, put up some big numbers. But the last 2 weeks of the regular season, he went flat, which is bad for fantasy playoffs. Because those last couple of weeks of the regular season are of course, playoffs in fantasy. And I just got demolished in the final round.
See, I don't know if our league's dynasty. I think it should be. So is that typical? You get 1, meaning the first year you get 1 pick. So the second year you get 2 picks, but you don't have to necessarily take the same player as year 1. You
Correct.
can take 2 different players. You just get 3. You just get 2 choices. So you technically, if you had Tom Brady that first year, you could take Tom Brady with your pick every year, or you could say by year 3 I don't want him anymore, so I get 3 other players.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing with the league that I had Amari. Because that league I have Devontae Adams from the Packers, David Johnson from...
Yeah, both those guys this year.
Yeah, they're both studs. Hopefully they'll be studs again this year.
Yeah.
And I drafted Robert Woods from the Rams, who had a career year last year. And I had Amari, and I can still technically keep him until the draft, but I've set it up where I'm not going to keep him. Mm-hmm. So unless someone offers me a valuable player for him, I'm probably not going to keep him because I like consistency. Like, of course, I want those big players that are going to put up great points, but I like consistency, especially in the playoffs. So,
do you guys have to pay for trades or pay for anything?
No.
Some guys I know do that too, where if you want to trade, you have to pay money for it.
No, but we are. So I'm in this brand new side league with 6 of my real close buddies, and so every team's absolutely stacked. Like it's almost ridiculous. But the whole waiver system is completely different. So you basically get this limited amount of currency, basically, that you use to pick up the free agents or waiver wire or whatever, and so you bid on them, and you only have so much currency to use, so you have to be a little more strategic with it. You can't just kind of go at will at trying to add free agents, and but again, every team is stacked, so it's almost like how often are we actually going to try and utilize the waiver wire? Usually that becomes more relevant in the latter part of the year, like after injuries have accumulated, and like some of the younger guys, like the rookies or sophomores, start blowing it up on the field. Yeah,
I don't know. It's fun. I enjoy it. Like I said, it keeps me. I know nothing really beyond the Giants, but it keeps me kind of entertained. So switching gears, kind of give us your music background. Like, do you still do play music?
Yeah, I actually most recently started playing with a group of friends. You probably know Ryan Barcombe.
Yep. I know
and he was actually the one that had originally asked me about it. He's like, hey, I got a buddy that's moving back into town from Vegas. I have another buddy. He plays bass. We're looking to start jamming. That's what everyone says.
And you're drums, right?
Yeah. I've been playing drums for a better part of my life now. I started off with percussion in 6th grade, and my parents got me my first drum kit in 8th grade. So I eventually did like a little bit of concert band stuff with drum set, but I learned through, just by basically teaching myself. But I had, the direction from percussion, which I did all throughout middle school and high school. I picked up bass guitar going into my junior year of high school, and I ended up playing in a rock band for about 5.5 years. We did original stuff. All the guys are still my best buddies. Those are pretty much my close group of friends.
Locally?
Yeah. I mean, this is like circa 2004.
Okay.
So it's been some time, not to date myself too much here, but yeah, I once I got into college, once I got into Plattsburgh State, I played in the jazz ensemble there. Because I was acquainted with different genres through playing percussion in concert band, but I wanted to be more fluent with like jazz and Latin. So my initial objective was to just get drum lessons with this guy there, who's like renowned as a drummer. Like his dad played with Miles Davis. This guy, Gabe Jarrett, he's amazing. Unfortunately, I haven't talked to him in some time, but so I just wanted to get more savvy with Latin and jazz, basically just to look cool. And they're like, yeah, you can take lessons, but you need to be part of an ensemble. Because I was in the finance department. I wasn't even in the music department. I just wanted to play drums. And I was like, sure, I'll see what I can do. So I attempted to join what's called the Mambo Combo. And they're like a 6 or 7 piece, maybe give or take a couple, Latin group. And they already had a drummer.
This is local.
Yeah, this is right at Plattsburgh State.
Okay.
And so they already had a drummer, and they were so small of a group that they didn't want a second drummer. So I was like, fine, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's like Grateful Dead had 2 drum sets.
Yeah. So. But they're like, you can probably play in the jazz band, though. And I was like, sweet, let's check it out. Because I was like kind of getting into jazz, but it was on my own. So it wasn't like I was classically trained in jazz. Mm-hmm. So, I was more or less winging it. But so I played in like the first jazz ensemble concert that I played in. I think I played in like maybe 2 out of 5 pieces that we played, and they went pretty well. And over time, we ended up splitting between the other drummer and I. We split all of the pieces, and I got pretty savvy with playing jazz drums, and I got to take the lessons. So I kind of overall developed my my kit. But to this day, I've always played music. I've always been very passionate about music. Unfortunately, it's not something I would attempt as a career. Not that I haven't considered it, because back in the high school days, there was always that dream.
Yeah. Like professional athlete, professional rock star.
Yeah. Because I tell you what, when we used to play, we rocked out, and we had a lot of good times. But anyways, yes. So the stuff I've been doing recently with Ryan and the other guys, it's been very informal. So we start off by doing some covers to kind of get some chemistry, which I think we did relatively well and quickly. And we've kind of messed around with some original ideas, but it's taking its time. Unfortunately, as you get older, setting aside time for cook,
hobbies, fun.
Everything. It's, and then getting the guys together on top of that it is tough too. And but it's fun. I mean, it's like no other thing. And I've always said that playing music, I think it's honestly the best feeling in the world. Compared to anything. Winning, making money, getting a girlfriend, whatever. I just find music to be gratifying in a way that can't be matched.
What genre of music you guys play?
I think the best genre to relate it to would be probably indie, mm-hmm. Because indie rock is very flexible on its own. I mean, it definitely goes back to that basic like 4/4 kind of style of music for the most part. But it's flexible. So it's, sometimes it can be heavy, sometimes it can be groovy, sometimes it can be poppy, and so on. But I think indie would be the best way to describe it.
Yeah. I mean, music-wise, when it's something I should get into. I never played the drums or anything like that. I played guitar fairly consistent for a year. And this was probably back in 2010, kind of that time period. I didn't know what was going on. But my dad had an old guitar. It literally sat in my room my whole childhood. Finally, I kind of had some interest in it, so I picked it up, went and bought a tuner, bought some new strings. My buddy restringed it. I tuned it up. Finally had a guitar that was tuned. And then it was YouTube videos. Is it ultimateguitar.com?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with all the tablatures and stuff. So I'd go on that, and I would learn chords. So then a lot of times it was just, you didn't really have to pick songs. You could just strum through, the basics. They'd sometimes be like A minor, D, things like that. So I could go through and I could at least, I knew my way around the guitar enough where I could kind of like start reading the chords, and I knew where to put my hands, and I was just kind of, the strumming, I was always screwed up on, because like, okay, you got to strum down, down, up, down, and it's like to me, I was just like kind of going by feel. Yeah. Which I think some people probably do anyways, and they just give it some like, kind of a rhythm. But when you're trying to do it correctly, I'm trying to play something by whomever, or especially like someone like a John Mayer who's like phenomenal. Oh, you're like looking at him and he's like up, down, up. And he's like, that's his strum the whole time. And you're like I can't do that once, let alone do it throughout the song and then change it different. So I'm always just kind of like slapping down on it. Every once in a while I'll come up, and half the time I didn't like using picks. Like I just kind of like slapping my hand through the lines. But you kind of do some cool things along the neck and by doing that. So, but I never got into it more than probably a year, and I stopped. But like to me, like you said, it's so therapeutic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like if you could just if I could sit here like on that couch with a guitar and just sheet music or just follow along on a YouTube video and just try to play a song and just kind of slowly practice. 3 hours could go by, and I'm like, I've been playing for an hour, and all of a sudden it's like 7 o'clock at night. And I just sat down at 3:30 just for a half hour to an hour. Yeah.
I learned bass through tablature as well. So I kind of a funny little story. When I started playing bass, it was the summer before my junior year.
Summer of '69.
Yeah. No, the summer of was it 2002? Jeez. I had traded a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards. It was Magic the Gathering. And it was a fair amount of cards. Like there was some value to them. And I just traded them away for this crappy bass guitar. And it wasn't even a bass guitar amp. It was this crappy little guitar amp. And so I started learning a lot of Blink-182 because I've always been a Blink-182 fan. And their bass lines were very simple, especially for someone just starting to learn how to play. I had who's
the bassist? Mark Hoppus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I had the percussion background, so it was a pretty seamless transition, really. I took to it easy, but bass guitar, I think as a whole, is by far the easiest instrument to learn for most people.
Okay.
But this is back when, I didn't have like Bluetooth speakers or anything. Mm-hmm. And so, in trying to learn these songs, I would basically just go into my bedroom, turn on my TV, put on a CD of whatever, and I had, how like the old Sony PlayStations, you could play a CD?
Yeah.
And like it had like this very retro, like...
Wasn't it like on top and you flipped it down and it started up? Yeah.
Yeah, so I would crank my TV so damn loud, and then I would just like play to it with my bass, and I would be rocking out like by myself. And it happened a handful of times. My parents would just abruptly walk in. I'd be like, I just curse at them because I was just like in the rock out mode, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Go. Yeah. Yeah.
So you like, this is how you do it with bass, right?
You
always kind of like pluck from the top.
Yeah, that's I
almost
think
like a harp, but you like.
That's how you're supposed to. But a lot of rock bassists and or like punk rock, whatever, will use picks because they play a lot more. They'll play like on a string more. Like I don't know how to put it into like non-nerdy music terms, but like they'll strum on like one string at a time, but they'll do like 16th note or 32nd notes, just like over and over.
It's quicker.
Yeah. So like if you can do it with your fingers. But especially for newbies, like doing the pick it's a lot easier.
So I don't follow a lot of like one of my favorite bands is Dave Matthews Band.
Okay.
I always loved him. So Stefan is obviously he's bass. He's a founding member of the group. But
yeah, they're all like virtuosos in that band.
Oh, they're good. Yeah, and he So you just see him, and he's always just like jamming out, but he's playing bass. So I always kind of wondering, because like you always look at the bass guy in a band, and you're thinking of all the things, like obviously the lead singer / lead guitarist, and like Dave's more, he does a lot of picking, but rhythm. But then you have Tim Reynolds, who's very much all doing all the funky things on the guitar. Then you got Buddy on the keyboard, so he's obviously playing keyboards, and you are very universal on the keyboards. You can play a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
And then the same thing, obviously Carter, who is a stud. And I would argue, I mean, I don't know a lot about drums, but I got to say he's one of the top in the world, like top in the world. Like,
I'm sure.
Even out of like all the professional bands in the world, he's probably top of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you start watching what he does, but then you always watch like Stefan, and he's like, I'm looking at the bass. I'm like, how many notes are you playing?
Yeah.
But he's good. But then like you get some of these songs where it's like crushed, like dun 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 dun, and he has like this bass line to it.
Yeah.
But he's very, because he was I guess classically or he was very like I forgot where he went to school for music, but he was trained to play it correctly, kind of.
Yeah.
He's not picking. So you always see him and he's plucking. I'm sure he's got phenomenal. Very. I mean, he's got phenomenal basics, but he's very music theory or whatever of the bass.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because he gets into it. I'm like, he's hitting the bass notes when he's just like jamming out to the music. Tung, tung, tung. So I always find that it's funny. Like I find bass guitarists are always the ones that they probably add a lot more to the band than you think. But you always look at them and they're like, they really playing stuff. Like how much are they playing?
Yeah.
Even though, like he looks like he's into it, which I like.
Yeah, it's so of course, being a drummer, and I can call myself a bassist because I played for so long. I haven't really picked up a bass guitar in a long time, but they're both rhythm instruments. So when you're playing when you're listening to music and you're listening to the rhythm section, like the bass and or drums, like the physical momentum kind of comes from those instruments. Like it's like the way you want to dance is probably based on those two instruments.
Which one?
But both the bass and drums. Like
okay.
Like the tempo and just kind of like the foundation that they set. But when you're a drummer, you can't like really get into it. Like you're not going to like play a funk song, like an old school James Brown song, and like sit there and like dance while you're playing drums. Mm-hmm. But you kind of want to. Like it's there. But when you're playing bass, like you're not using all of your appendages, so like you kind of have more freedom to just like kind of get into it a little more. And that goes with all genres. Like, I mean, you can be listening to like heavy metal and like you'll see like the guitarist, bassist, whatever, always have more freedom to just like get into the music more.
Yeah, I always look at like when I was playing, again, guitar, I was very low, like very basic level.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not very, I could play a few songs here and there. And
Guitar's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, and it was once you started getting it and you got through the calluses, and the hardest part is just stretching the thumbs. And like my thumb would always cramp up because you're just like trying to hold it and move your hands. And I don't have like my fingers aren't long.
Yeah. So
it's kind of hard to really come up around the neck and hold them down correctly. So there's a lot of muted strings when I was playing. So you started playing, but like there's sometimes when you start to get better and more in a rhythm, you could feel. It wasn't just like overthinking. You could really just kind of like let yourself go and like you could really not overthink the instrument. Sure. But then you could also kind of get into like kind of like a little groove where I could see why people now that get up, they're like kind of bebopping and dancing while they're up there playing it, because they're just letting their hands kind of move and they're enjoying the music as it's coming out. Where I was such a low level that for me, just like I said, kind of making a solid strum on the guitar over and over again was good versus like 3 of the 6 strings because I had 2 muted and my the bass, my thumb was, or the finger was like pressing down the last 2, and it was just it's a really cool instrument. It's one that I want to play. I would actually have better success if I brought it here and just put it in the corner and like 10 minutes here and there, just kind of pick some stuff and just. But I don't know if I'll ever do that. Like I said, I have a better shot of playing it here than at home. At home, won't happen. I
have an acoustic guitar that sits around. I'll play it like maybe once every 2 months.
Yeah, and it's just it's fun though. It's one where I wish it was one of those. People always say like a skill. Like we have a keyboard. Like I would love to be able to play a keyboard. Oh, yeah. Now, granted, I don't practice it, so I have no right to say I should be able to play it because I put 0 time into it. But it's one where that's a cool skill to have in the sense of one. It's I think fun because it's very mentally relaxing. I would think because you kind of. Like for me, I won't take it seriously, so I'd just be more kind of like a, sit down for even just an hour and just kind of play and let your mind just kind of think. And it's good, I think, for the brain and motor skills. And as you get older, I think that's a cool thing to do. So I'll probably try to pick it up later on in life. I could see myself getting into guitar or piano probably like my late 30s, early 40s, or probably 40s when like the kids are older and I'm not, maybe have a little bit more free time and I can sit there and just like, I'm going to play, a couple times a week, just, for a half hour here, hour there, and just kind of slowly get that skill level up.
Yeah, the guitar is how can I put this? It's like it's what like every musician wants to be good at. So the guitarists, especially you have rhythm guitarists and lead guitarists. Everyone wants to have the ability to rock a nasty guitar solo. Like, it doesn't matter if you're like an amazing drummer,
just shred on it. Yeah.
Like there's just something like there's something different about it. Like with drums, I've always told everyone, and this kind of sounds a little funny, but like it's the most primal instrument. So like you just kind of like go back to like your origins with drums. Like it just comes from, well, as do all instruments, but drums especially, I think just it comes from inside. Like it's very instinctive. Whereas guitar, it's like you're kind of following a melody, and there's just something about a guitar solo that like everyone I think wants to be.
Well, there's more notes in a guitar, right? Because I would think that and I don't know a lot about drums, but like drums, you have your kit is only so big.
Oh yeah.
So like now maybe I'm wrong. Like, is it when you play drums? Do you like hitting certain part of the drums? Is that like notes?
No, well.
I know if you hit more in the center, it's kind of the bigger one. But if you go a little bit closer, it probably has a different tune because the canvas is a little tighter there, probably.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely correct. And I'm not like a tech whiz, and a lot of people are. But drums, I think you kind of you tune them up, and like you don't need to like retune them, unless you're talking like freaking timpanis, like those big old drums.
Oh no, I'm talking like a standard drum set, even one that's big enough where you have a handful of drums and then you have like 3 cymbals. Like you have like a pretty big kit because most of them probably have 2 cymbals and 3 or 4 drums and a bass.
It's usually like like some old school guys will go 2 toms, snare drum, bass drum, bam, a little 4-piece, but some guys will go 5, 6.
And a cymbal part of that, or is that
no? So it isn't. I had to think about that one for a moment. So, like, if you hear something like a 4-piece or a 5-piece, it's just referring to the drums. It's not referring to the cymbals. But yeah, there's like you want to quote unquote tune your drums, but you don't need to tune them to like a different key for every song. There's just like an overall tune for every song, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, because I just always felt so like hitting a cymbal. If you have 3 cymbals, they're all different pitches.
Yeah, I guess technically.
Because like, why would you have more than one? Because some are different sizes. Some are probably, I don't know if different materials are kind of bent different ways, but they might make a different sound, higher, lower pitch.
Yeah, I mean there are a slew of different cymbal types. I mean you have like splash cymbal, crash cymbal, hi-hats, ride cymbal, ride crash, China crashes are actually one of the coolest ones. They kind of sound like a whip when you hit them. Like it's very like quick, like a psh.
So they do have different sounds. So like if somebody has like 2, I'm thinking like Carter's probably got 4 on his. I'm guessing
he from what I recall he's got a pretty large drum set, I think.
Yeah, because he's always hitting stuff, but sometimes he'll like hit stuff and just like he'll hit and grab real quick. So it's just like tink, and then like it's. Yep. But it's like the stuff that he does is really cool because obviously he's playing percussion and drums. So I mean, there's more to it than just. But I always find it fascinating. I'll go to one of their shows. I'll just be sitting there watching him. And one time we had seats on the side of the stage, like a little ways up. But I've sat there twice, and I spent half the concert just like watching him just hit the drums.
Yeah,
like,
you can always tell. Well, you can usually tell when a drummer is well versed in percussion or the rudimentary side to drumming versus just being a drummer. And that's not to say you can't be, as skilled if you haven't gone through percussion, but you can usually tell based on their style and their fills.
My buddy, a guy I know, Brad plays in Glass Onion, so he's the drummer of Glass Onion.
Yeah, I think I'm related to a bunch of those guys somehow.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, they're like distant cousins.
They're all Northeastern guys. So, but they, So he's done that, and our son had a bunch of drums, and like from a young, I mean, he's a year and a half now, but I mean, about 1 year old, something like that, he really started to get into hitting drums. So we bought him like a little drum thing. So he'll just sit there and he was like he would just hit this, he would hit that, and it wasn't to the fact like he's just like a little kid like slapping stuff. Like he was actually like he would drum. At one point, he was just like he would sit there and like hit them all down the thing, and then he would grab stuff, and like he was very big on, and he had very good he's pretty good coordinated. So hand-eye coordination's good. So my wife always wanted to play the drums. She goes, Brad, can you teach him the drums? And he goes, I don't know how to read music. Like I don't know how to do I don't know how to do drums. Like literally, he's played for probably 30 years, but a lot of it's probably just for him rhythm and feel, and obviously just knowing beats and stuff through practice.
Oh yeah,
and obviously hours and hours on the drums, but. It's funny because he's like, I don't know how to read music. I just kind of, I want to hear, I got to actually ask him how he got into it, because he might have just got into it being like, dude, we need another guy in the band. Can you just play drums? Like, oh, I'll figure it out as I go. Because I figured that the drums are probably the instrument that you could figure out as you go, meaning you just kind of get rhythm. And maybe I'm wrong.
Like, no, you're absolutely correct.
Like if I was to sit down and you're like, and obviously with a little bit of practice, but like, hey, Gaelan, we're doing a band, kind of start following the rhythm, feel it out, and be like, okay, like I kind of can fill in the gaps. So I find that drums are big. Like you have your main rhythm, and then the drums are like they fill in all the gaps to make it sound full. And to me, I think it's something that you could kind of self-teach yourself. Like him saying, I don't know how to read music makes sense.
Yeah.
A guitarist saying, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, I'm just playing strings. I don't buy that, because you obviously know the notes by hand positioning chords and stuff.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to learn how to read music. I would say that like some of the different like marching drum patterns, like eventually if you play for so long, you'll learn, and you may not even realize it. Like a lot of like your fast drum fills are combinations of like singles and double strokes, etc. And I mean, a lot of people might be doing it and not even realizing it. And you can just, like you kind of brought up earlier, you can just watch a YouTube video how to learn how to do this thing called like a paradiddle, which is just like a combination of rights and lefts. And then you apply that to drum set, and it becomes this crazy looking sounding fill. One of the best drummers, and one of my favorite drummers in the jazz community, Buddy Rich, he supposedly could not read music, and he's been regarded as one of the best drummers for a long time.
Who does he play? Or like, I say, who does he play for? Is he just his own guy? I've never heard of him.
He played in a number of jazz bands, like trios, quartets, a lot of big bands. He's since passed. I think he died back in like 86 or something, but he's still well known in the music community.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know a lot of. I know a couple drummers here and there.
Yeah,
like Travis Barker, obviously. I know him from Blink, and you mentioned that. Actually, speaking of him, did you listen to his podcast on Rogan? He's an interesting cat.
I listened to some of. I listened to a small clip.
Like smart, very smart dude. Like, but it's kind of funny when you hear, because he's like rock band, punk band, but now he's obviously like, yeah, well that was like 20 years ago. Now I'm kind of a dad and doing the thing. But he still goes hard. But he's obviously he's at a different point in life than he was when he's probably running around in like a rock band in his early 20s or whatever. So
he's always been one of my big drum icons. And Blink as a band, I don't want to say they've regressed, because obviously they've developed and kind of,
I'm blanking on his name. Lead guitar.
Oh, Tom DeLonge. Yeah,
so Tom's out, right? Because he's off looking for aliens or Bigfoot or something.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it.
He went on Rogan's podcast too, and he's like, he like quit the band to like go focus on trying to find aliens or something.
Yeah, and I think there was a falling out between him and Mark.
Okay.
Which is, it's like unfortunate. Like, they found success, and they were supposedly like best friends for so long beforehand, and then they had that falling out, but and they got back together, and supposedly he left on good terms, but he started looking for aliens, something along those lines, and I watched some of that podcast because he's out there, literally. But man, I grew up on Blink, and Travis Barker's drums have always been, I don't want to say the most technical, but he's always been super innovative. But not to say he isn't technical, but he's been very innovative. And I find that aspect of his style of anyone's style. It's innovation, I think, is always the number one thing.
So who's your all-time favorite? Was it that guy you just mentioned before?
It's hard to say number one, because there are so many out there.
Or who do you think is the best drummer, or is it different because the styles are a little bit different?
So this is going to be a bit of bias here, but when I was still with Ameritrade, when they sent me out for that Texas trip, when I was on my way back, I was in Philly for a connecting flight, and I was on a delay, and I was just sitting at like the bar or something watching a football game, and I saw this guy and a lady walking through, and it was this guy named Vinny Caliuta, and I had to do a double take, but I'm like, that's definitely him, and I went up to him and I introduced myself and I got a picture with him, and I actually ended up talking to him and his wife for about 10 minutes, and he's played with a number of musicians. He's more of like a studio guy. So he's more well-known in like the drummer community. He's not like the guy that is like the face of a band or anything. He's played with a number of well-known bands. Like he's played with like the Police, Frank Zappa, Megadeth, Phil Collins. It's not stuff that I necessarily listen
Phil
to.
Collins? Was he the guy, the most famous drum solo in all of, what is that?
I Can Feel It Coming in the Air?
Yeah, that song.
Yeah.
That would have been him. At some point in time, he's covered that song.
Yep.
Then.
But like the list goes on and on. So sometimes it's those more like studio type musicians that like aren't at the front of the band or of any band rather. Mm-hmm. Just that they do like the recording stuff, or they'll go play live. He plays with this guy Herbie Hancock, who's a well-known jazz musician. But I would say Vinny is, just kind of thinking off the cuff, I'd probably say is one of the best, if not the best, because he plays everything so well.
Yeah, no, I've never, like I said, I've never heard of. I only know a few of them, but I don't know. I think drums are cool. I just think music's cool. It's like something I think everybody would want to play an instrument if they could. It's just one of those, like, it's one of those skills. Like, what could you, like, would you want to be an artist? Would you want to be a very good athlete of something? I would say out of all that stuff, I wish I could play music really well. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. Going back, I can't really describe what attracted me to it. But I remember, when I was in elementary school listening to, just basic pop music, like music just always stood out to me. And I always got a really genuine enjoyment from it. And, when I really was drawn to the drums in particular. And when I first got my drum kit back in 8th grade, it was just, this little cheap thing. I had no freaking idea what I was doing. I basically just banged on it for a couple months. Like I literally used one of the toms as what the bass drum should be. Like I would just be like, wouldn't even use the kick drum. Mm-hmm. And then like one day I just felt like a little bit of coordination in my foot. And like I was playing like a basic, like, something really basic. And through, playing percussion and listening to music, like I could pick up beats. I knew what he was doing, or I thought I did.
Yeah.
And that develops, but it's been a long time. But I mean, music to this day is still, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
My next topic: would you trade it for a good beer? This is what is that good?
It is pretty good. Let's see here, Rooster Comb. It's a double IPA, New England style, so it's
here. You mind if I have a sip of that?
Yeah, go for it.
Because my buddy gave me this.
It's good.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of kick to it.
Mean Max Brew Works. Not that mean. I don't know what that means, but Mr. Coleman. Yeah, I don't. So, what's your favorite type of beer? Which I know. Okay, I know this is like picking for some people. It's like picking out your favorite kid. But like, do you have like what do you kind of go to? What's your like go to style beers?
Oh man,
because we've talked about this before. I like certain beers.
Yeah.
I can drink probably any kind of beer if you gave it to me. There's definitely some that I'm like that I could drink. Definitely only drinking one of those. I usually don't order like a double IPA just because they're a little too heavy for me.
Yeah. That's hard to say.
It's not bad though.
Yeah, no, I mean it definitely, fits the bill. I I mean, IPA, there's always, if I'm going to have a couple drinks, there's usually an IPA in the mix. But to kind of put one out there, I'd probably have to say like a really good Pilsner, I think is probably my favorite. Maybe like a hoppy Pilsner. So, I mean, a lot of people might think of like Labatt Blue or something.
Like a Miller Lite is a Pilsner. Like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. But like a good like craft Pilsner that, you know, has like some hardiness to it and maybe some hops. But what really turned me on to craft beer was, well, number one, my buddy who still lives in the area, he started brewing for, oh my gosh, he's been brewing for 8 years along with one of our other friends, Adam Leahy and Steve Kuntz. And they actually put together that what the heck was it?
There's a thing a couple weeks ago, or probably a month ago now.
The Homebrew Club?
Yes.
Homebrew Collective.
Yes.
And I guess like, you know, that's gained some interest. They're pretty like low key guys, so they're not like putting out a lot of stuff for it, but it's more or less to become educated. Like it's not necessarily to gain traction as a community. It's more or less to educate everyone involved. But they've been doing it for the better part of 8 years, maybe more, or maybe less, but they have done exceptional stuff. And, you know, like I used to drink like Sam Adams here and there, and then it was like Fat Tire from New Belgium. And like, I always kind of enjoyed the stuff, you know, Guinness I always enjoyed. And my buddy started working in Vermont a while ago, and like occasionally he'd have me like try this is great. And I'd be like, wow, that really is good. And it's not like I like to necessarily drink to get, you know, wasted or whatever. It's just, you know, you have like 2 or 3 at the most, and, you know, it just kind of heightens things.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good time, whatever. But after that period, I really started taking to craft beer, and actually started, if I were to have a couple drinks, I would seek out craft beer. So, I mean, I've done the liquor thing, you know, throughout college, whatever. That's not really that enjoyable. And then last year I was working in Burlington, and, you know, a lot of the clients or even the coworkers, they'd be like, you need to try this, et cetera. And we go out for dinner, and I really got turned on to craft beer, like pretty much exclusively now. Like I don't really drink anything else if I do have a few drinks. I'm not sure.
I always think like beer, like this is my thing, and I'm a very, again, amateur when it comes to it. I've drink beer, however it's pronounced, for, you know, enough now that I've had enough different kinds of beers. I'm not the kind that's going to go get, you know, boxcard out downtown anymore. We've lived through those times. I mean, don't get me wrong, every once in a while, but it's to the point now where it's like I got to almost plan for it to happen.
Yeah, it's like a 3-day event.
Well, I got to be like, okay, no kids tonight, wife's with the kids, or wife's out of town. Do I have any appointments tomorrow? Okay, like this literally goes through my mind, and to give myself like the go ahead, not the care. Usually, it's like have a few drinks. Yeah, it's literally enough that I can still drive home. Like I'm not. Sure. So my whole thing is when it comes down to like. We went to Portland probably a month ago for a concert out there.
Nice.
Portland is beautiful. Portland has a ton of breweries out there, and it reminds me of kind of like a bigger Burlington. I shouldn't say bigger Burlington, a more condensed Burlington, because you know Burlington's a little smaller.
Yep.
And you do have some good places over there, but at the end of the day, you know, something like Portland is a bigger city, and there's like you'll have a brewery here, all on the same road, probably 500 yards from each other.
Yeah.
And what's cool is when you start going to some of these, the problem is it's like overwhelming how many. You go into like a store in Burlington, or you go to a store in Portland, and you look in, and they have probably 20 different styles or brands of beer.
Oh yeah.
So it's then you start going in, and it's like, well, we have the IPA, or we have the Pilsner, or we have the whatever of 6 different brands, and of course it's like wine. I like wine, but it's like you really got to go with like the style that you like. Like I like Cabernets. I'm not a huge Merlot guy. I can drink it, but it's not my favorite. And there's certain ones that I kind of gravitate towards, and there's some that I totally will stay away from. And I kind of find that with beers, there's a lot that I don't know. Like every time like a Kosch, Kosch.
Oh, Kolsch.
Kolsch, Colsch, something.
Yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
German word or
yeah.
something. Like I think I've tried that before, and that's not bad.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you get like the lighter ones versus the heavier ones, or the
Oh, yeah.
more concentrated versus kind of the, like I've seen like a Kolsch summer type thing, and I didn't know
Yeah.
if that's more like a Pilsner. So my knowledge is like usually this is my go-to when I go any place that has beer. I'll just be like, what do you think's good? I'll ask you, like, what do you
Yeah.
think's good? Or I'll ask the bartender, I'm like, which one's good? I'm like, try this. I'm like, okay, go for it. Because I don't know enough about it, and I'm not super picky. Where if I get one, I can at least finish the beer. If I
Yeah.
don't like it, I'll change it up. Or if I really don't like it, I'll go to like something I've heard of that I'll be like, okay, I can at least go to a switchback, or I can at least go to something that I know that I can drink versus.
Sure.
So my knowledge is very limited on that. But I mean, Burlington. What's your favorite place in Vermont?
Well, I'd say that's somewhat, well, maybe it's not as easy as I thought. My go-to is going to be Burlington Beer Company.
Okay.
They don't necessarily do anything the best, but
Is that the one right downtown? Or no?
I know Foam. Well, Foam is down by the waterfront.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of. Is it Zero Gravity? There's one down there. It's escaping
Okay.
me though.
Could be Zero Gravity. Yeah.
I mean, so Burlington Beer Company, I think overall is my favorite because they do so many different things very well. They don't necessarily do anything the best, but they do a lot of stuff very well, and they have variety. Foam, the one by the waterfront down there, is very, very good. They do pilsners, sours, IPAs very, very well. There's Hill Farmstead, which is out in Greensboro. So it's like out in the middle. It's not the middle of nowhere, but it's pretty close. But they've been voted like number one in the country like 2 or 3 years.
What is it called? Hills Farmstead?
Hill Farmstead.
Okay.
And I had their stuff for the first and only time here at SIP. It was actually, I saw you that night, and I think I recommended it to you actually.
Yeah. That was good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, like just a straight.
It was Isaac's thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like a straight double IPA. And it's.
And they have a lot of it because we went back for more and it was gone. It was off the
Yeah.
list. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they just do everything. They don't do anything like out of the norm, but they do it like perfectly, basically. It's super, super clean. And yeah, I believe is either 2 or 3 years in recent years, they've been voted number one in the country.
Like, what are a couple of your favorites around here?
Ovalcraft. Ovalcraft does a pretty darn good job. Sable Brewery, without a doubt.
I always hear good things about Sable Brewery. I've never been.
Yeah, I've been there twice. I've had their stuff a number of times, but I've been there twice. They just do a really good job, and they have good variety too. So you know, it's hard to find some of these smaller breweries that do try to take on those more complex brews, be able to do everything consistently well, and they do that. Living Goods, I think they're. I don't want to say overlooked, but I think they do a pretty good job too, and they have decent variety. I wouldn't say they're as good as Sable Brewery or Ovalcraft, but they're right there.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to like, I've drank it. I haven't been on Sable Brewing, but I've driven by it a few times. I stopped in once to get a couple growlers for people, but I've never actually had their beer. I've obviously had Valcor, Plattsburgh Brewing Company, Oval, and what was the other one you said? Living Goods. Yeah. So I've had all those before, and those are kind of like, that's probably your main 5 around here, right? I would think.
Yeah.
Am I missing some? Unless they're smaller.
Oh, gosh, I'm trying to think.
If you go up probably towards Lake Placid and stuff, they have some out there. But so yeah, I'm kind of limited a little bit on it. But like every time I go to them, they all kind of taste the same to me. Because that's the thing, I have a hard time differentiating which one's good versus not. And because I'm not a huge drinker. I drink socially, but it's not one where I have no. Besides wine bottles, I have 0 alcohol in my house. Like I have no beer, I have no liquor. I'm not a big. My wife doesn't really drink. So really, if my wife's not drinking, it's not like we're cracking bottles of wine open for dinner and things like that. Yeah. So, and I might have wine at my house with dinner, 2-3 times a year max.
Okay.
And usually I drink like one glass and I end up putting it in the fridge and it sits there for 3 months and then I have to dump it. I never finish a bottle of wine at home.
Yeah.
I do love wine, but if I don't have anything to drink, I have nobody to drink it with, I'm not going to drink it.
Yeah, I usually, if I do have a couple drinks, it's, with friends or family, whatever. I usually have some good craft beer in my fridge.
That's good. I mean, it's good to stock up. I mean,
Yeah.
well, actually, I've had 3 here, so I actually have more in my mini fridge here than anything else, just because
Nice.
of things like this that you can, pass it on. But no, like I said, I'm more of a wine guy. I really got into wine probably kind of during that time period, the period that lapsed. When I was like 21, I started, for some reason, I got into wine, and I remember talking to a good friend of ours who's, I think he would classify himself as like a wino. He just drinks a lot of it and is very knowledgeable and knows the difference of different wines. And I got to the point where I could really tell the difference back then of wines. Like I really, like for some reason I always liked the wines. Well, then one of our people I know that owns a local vineyard around here, remember they both told me, they said, you should start off with like the dry reds. You really should just like dive in, like just go for it.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite wine still to this day is dry reds. And I actually went from dry reds to I ease myself back into whites, which usually people go from like the party girl Moscato, Pink Zinfandel stuff. So then they'll start going to like the Pinot Grigio and they'll slowly get into the whites. Yeah. And then all of a sudden like they get fancy and they hit Chardonnay. And like this is what, or Riesling, or they probably go from Riesling into Chardonnay. And then they eventually will test out like the red table wine. Like they'll start like dabbling in that crap. And I was always the one. I was like, I'm going straight to I'm going, heavy, and that's where like the Merlots and Syrahs and the Zinfandels, Cabs and all those. Like you kind of had these like real heavy dark reds, dry, and I loved them. Like I love dry reds. I cannot anything sweet, no matter what. Off dry whites, I like dry whites in the summer are great. But I had like this. I really knew a lot about it. Now I'm not as versed as I was probably 5 to 7 years ago, but. Man, like it's tough for me to beat wine. Like sitting around drinking wine with people, I do like a good glass of wine, but I do like beer. I mean, it depends on the crowd, it depends on the atmosphere, it depends on. I do like mixed drinks. It depends on the situation, but usually mixed drinks, I'm hitting like clubs and vodkas at weddings. Like that's like I'm not going to weddings drinking beer and vodka or beer and wine. But then if I'm going out like to a bar, I'm not getting a glass of wine. But if I go have like a nice dinner, I'm going to get wine, not getting beer. So like it's very much, I think, dependent on where I am, but I do love wine with food.
Okay.
Beer I can't drink with food.
Yeah.
At all. I can drink that. Literally, this is what would happen. We would get that before dinner. I would have a beer, one or whatever. May not even get to the first one, and literally they'll bring the food out. That beer will sit in there until the end of the meal, and I may not even drink it. At that point, I'll be like, honestly, I'm full.
Yeah.
Because beer fills me up. Wine doesn't really fill me up, and obviously mixed drinks don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say that too about beer. I know what you're saying. Like, I definitely like. You have to be a little more conscious of like the amount you're taking in. But I mean, going back to the wines, like if I do drink wine, it's dry all day. Like I've drank the sweets and I'm not opposed to them. But I find the red dries, white dries are okay, but red dries I think are definitely where it's at.
Yeah, because I think if it's too sweet though, it's just like, to me, if I have a sweet red wine or if I have sweet white wine, to me I don't eat or drink a lot of sweet things. So
yeah.
I drink my coffee black. Like 95% of the time, it's just black coffee. There's certain things that I drink like water or club soda, and that's pretty much it. So like for me, wines are about as sweet as you can get. Like a dry wine is about as sweet of a drink as I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And the thing is, basically, it's part of it's like a hangover effect too. Like I just find you drink all that.
Yeah,
I mean, we all went. Trust me, we all lived through college. We all had the cranberry mixers, the soda mixers, the rum and cokes, and all those things. But I mean, I'm done with those days. Like I'm not mixing anything with sugar in my drink. Like I'm a club soda vodka guy. Like I want no sugar. I don't want the hangover of the next day, because that's the problem too. Like when you go out drink and you wake up. The last time I woke up like truly hungover was when we went to Portland, and I was with eight or nine other people that were all way better drinkers than I was, because I don't drink that often. I was like, male, female, half the size of me, twice the size of me. I was like trying to hang on because it was one where I don't drink too often. Like the next day, like, and we were all hurting, but like the next day, I was like, this is rough. To the point where like even eating, I was like, I remember going to get breakfast and I had like half a bagel sandwich, and I was like, and I almost didn't finish half the bagel sandwich. I like was like picking at it, like trying to force it down. Like, this is so bad right now, and it was like 90 degrees and humid out, and like all I wanted to do, and we had to walk like 2 miles to go get to this bagel place. Because we didn't really know where we were. And, that definitely put the hangover away. And then we ended up going, of course, to eat lunch. And they ordered beer again at lunch. So I ended up getting a sour, right? A sour? Yeah, so I got a sour, which it's a lighter drink. It's not as hoppy and not as like filling as a beer. At least this one was kind of, it was like drinking like a cider. It was easier to drink.
Yep.
And it was kind of a smoother drink than something that was a little more hoppy. And even that, I didn't finish the drink. And I only got it was like one of those like fancy little like, you know what I'm talking about. They're not that big. They're probably not much bigger than that. And
it's like the flower bulb kind of thing.
Yeah. And I don't know how many ounces in that. I'm guessing like 8 to 10 ounces. It really wasn't a big thing. And I don't think I finished it because I was like sipping on it. I'm going to throw up. I can't. So I ended up getting one of the like a true hangover meal at that point, just to like try to force food down. And then come time, like we got to the concert, I was great. I was ready to go.
Dude, Portland's a pretty sweet place. My buddy lives out there.
So have you visited often?
I've been there a couple times. The first time, gosh, it's been a while. But we went around downtown. We went to this little theme park by the ocean. Just a beautiful area. And then the second time was for his wedding, so we were dealing with all that stuff. So we didn't really do much else other than that. But
did you go to any of the breweries there?
I didn't. No, unfortunately. This was like circa 2013. So at that time, like I was kind of into craft beer, but not really that much.
Because some of those are like they're fancy. I say fancy, but they're a cool place to go. It's a cool place to hang out. Like some of the ones around here, there's not. I mean, realistically, the best ones to probably go sit and drink at, like, is probably Valcor or probably Plastic Brewing Company. Now, I know Sable, I think, has the outdoor venue, but you don't really have a traditional, setting where a lot of these things are old industrial buildings that they converted, and or they'll have one of the ones we went to. They kind of had a front parking lot. They basically just sectioned off into this big outdoor. They had all these picnic tables. They had they had cornhole. They had a couple outdoor food trucks. They had kind of like makeshift landscaping that went around that made you feel like you're like in this. But it was a cool place to hang. It was like a Saturday, and it was nice out in the summer, and it was packed. There was like a couple hundred people hanging around, and that's fun. And we were playing cornhole and like just having a good time. But like the setting itself was fun. Like it was a fun place to hang out. You had places you could stand and drink, and I don't think we really have that setting to a T. But like it'll be cool. Have you gone down J Street down here?
Yeah.
They have those old warehouse buildings.
Yeah, that would be.
I don't know how bad those are, but it'd be so cool if somebody came right down the waterfront and you kind of turn that like little grass area. You could easily turn those into basically outdoor beer garden kind of things. That would be a cool place to have. It's
really unfortunate we don't have anything in the downtown area, like the real downtown, for craft breweries. And I know we had one that unfortunately didn't last for very long. But I mean, there are a number of locations like that warehouse. The old Jeffries building over there. I mean, prime locations for something like that. But this kind of goes to a conversation I've had with my buddy about going from like that homebrew setup to like a microbrewery or producing on a much larger scale. A lot of these guys are reluctant to either they have jobs and families that are kind of hindering them from doing it. Or they just don't know how to go about doing it, whatever. And not to use these guys as an example, but the guys that were there previously at Jeffrey's old location, they kind of seemingly, anyways, went in too quick. Because I mean, their biggest weakness was the beer itself. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think when they had that,
we went there.
Yeah, he was very open about it. He's like, we're still making changes and learning about how to produce on a larger scale. And unfortunately, I don't think they ever got there. But it's a really big step from producing for, maybe a dozen people versus producing for hundreds or thousands of people.
Yeah. Especially if you're trying to monetize it in the sense of you're trying to to bottle and ship it places.
Yeah.
Because one thing, I mean, you can do kegs and sell kegs to local places, but yeah, to end up putting it in cans to put it in stores to sell it, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
I mean, the overhead cost is more than just making a small batch. Like,
Yep.
to be honest, you with a little bit of practice could probably make a fairly decent beer.
Oh, yeah.
On a small scale, meaning something you could probably fill a keg up with. But it's not something that you're going to sit there and sell, cases of beer to people, and that's always the thing. So when you look at, like, especially places in Vermont, like Switchback obviously is I would say a pretty popular one.
Oh yeah.
And like the Alchemist, I mean, that's a big one, and you have all these other ones that they've done a fairly good job. Does Foam, they must do some type of
they do can releases. They're a little more, I don't know, they're more exclusive, I guess. Like, they only do their cans out of the brewery location. They don't actually supply outside of that.
Or like Citizen Cider.
Yeah.
Have you been there? Like Citizen Cider, you can see that in a lot of places, and that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we've been to the place there, and that's fun. Like, get the flights there, and they have a nice kind of cool little setup too. And
yeah, all the breweries over there are, very, up to date with, like, pop culture and all that.
yeah, no, I think it's good. I don't know. I want to go to Foam. I know one of the guys I think is semi-local over here. A buddy of mine is friends with him, and he said, like, I remember him telling me, he's like, hey, my buddy's opening this place over in Vermont called Foam.
Yeah.
And this was, I don't know how long they've been open now, probably 3 years ago. It was probably when they opened, 4, something like that.
Yeah, they make remarkable stuff.
And that's what I've heard that, and I remember seeing, the first time I ever saw them, we went over, I think I went over for a concert. I forgot who the heck I saw. But we went down to the waterfront, and we were down.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it was me and my wife at the time, and or she's still my wife. Me at the time, me and my wife went down there, and they were doing stuff, and they were just moving in. Like, they were very basic, and I think we actually walked in to the front section because they were like, it was like, come check us out, but they weren't open yet. It was like, go in, kind of see what we're up to. It was more of, they were just under construction, but they were open to the fact of, like, hey, just come see us. Like, we'd rather have people walk in and ask us what's up, which is great marketing strategy.
Sure.
Like, just let people wander in and kind of, you kind of do some publicity that way for yourself. But I've heard some good things, so I'd like to go again. I'd go back to the kids and trying to get a full day where you can just kind of go day drink over there.
Yeah,
it would be fun, but that would be a place that would stop, because I'm sure they have a beautiful setup right on the water. Yeah, and I'm sure you can probably still kind of go hang out. And they have the whole grass area there out right across the way. Yeah,
it's great for the summer, of course. They have an indoor area that's it's sizable, but during the summer they have a back outdoor area as well as a front outdoor area, and they're in a prime location. It's actually funny, they're actually in the financial district. There's like a Morgan Stanley and a Schwab right there, and then you have Foam.
I was gonna say, just in case you got to do market research, be like, just kind of checking it out. You can get a haircut too. I think there's a men's barber shop down there, and then you can go to Skinny Pancakes.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Yeah.
It's a great little thing. Great little. I guess one stop shops, how they call it. Yeah. So, Dave, anything else? I would actually talk way longer, but as we talked about, we have we're kind of doing a matinee podcast.
No, man, this has been a lot of fun. I'd like to come back.
Yeah, cool. I usually, basically, like I said, I always have a theme. Everybody's always like, they say, what is your theme? I don't have a theme. My theme is people I want to talk to. So we always end up, like I said, I always like talking to you when we see each other at events and stuff and get lunch and hang out and stuff like that. So, cool. Well, I think we're going to stop there. If people want to find you, Dave, give a plug for anything that we didn't really actually get into much of your job, but that's fine. I usually like shooting the shit about other stuff. But anything, if you want people to find you, contact you, promote, plug, anything that you have, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I work over at SeaComm, Federal Credit Union down on the corner of Tom Miller and Smithfield Boulevard. I'm the financial advisor there. Do a lot with investments, insurances, IRA, 401k rollover, financial planning, things of that nature. You don't have to be a member to come see me. There's no fee, things of that sort. I'd like to say I'm a pretty friendly guy, so feel free to stop on in. I didn't have anything prepared. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, we're working on I mean, it's not like too formal. I mean, it's kind of a laid back thing. So, no, that's great. I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure we'll see you out and about at events I always get to run into, and like I said, we'll coordinate probably lunch over the next couple of weeks. Get together and go check it out. We should do like a Friday Kind of like a late afternoon Friday, and then we could just kind of turn it into like a little happy hour.
I would be fine with that.
We could be.
I'd definitely be down with
Okay,
that.
we'll talk about that after, so you guys don't have to hear all the plans. But cool. So Dave, I appreciate coming on. That is episode 45 of the Gaelan Trombley Show. We are out. Thanks for listening to the Gaelan Trombley Show. If you want to reach me, you can go on Facebook at Gaelan Trombley, on Instagram at Gaelan Trombley, and on YouTube at Gaelan Trombley. The spelling, GaelanTrombley.